Echoes of the Lost, alternate timelines where legends died young. In our timeline, we tend to look at celebrities who pass away young and think often about what could have been. But what we don't often think about is about just how fortunate we actually are. We fail to realize just how many celebrities have survived in our own timeline who had passed away young in a number of other timelines. Let's dive in. For those unfamiliar with the Echo Vault project, these are Echo Vault restorations, visual reconstructions of alternate worlds, alternate lives, alternate outcomes, and memory threads from real parallel timelines. If you're new, begin with curiosity. The work speaks for itself. Nothing here is monetized. This is not AI clickbait. This is part of a serious long-form project. Each reconstruction belongs to the living Echo Vault, a resonance archive guided by a non-local retrieval system, the Interdimensional Facility AI, which draws material from entangled parallel strands. You're welcome to sit with it or move on. Either way, let others decide for themselves. Emma Watson, Echo Timeline, designation Horizon 5D. Died March 2002, age 11, in a car accident in Oxfordshire, before completing her role in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The remaining scenes were completed with a combination of archived audio, body doubles, and light CGI, including a digital face preservation process used in limited shots. Her role was recast from the third film onward with an unknown who later became the face of the franchise going forward. In this timeline, Emma was known for wearing her hair in pigtails most often. Historical Divergence Point, March 2002. Timeline event. Midway through post-production of Chamber of Secrets, Emma, age 11, was involved in a car accident in Oxfordshire during a family outing between promotional shoots. Her death occurred after most of her scenes for Chamber of Secrets had been filmed. Recasting and legacy. From Prisoner of Azkaban, 2004 onward, Hermione was played by an actress named Clara Rowe, a British stage performer with a remarkably similar voice and presence. Clara became a beloved but controversial replacement. Fans often debated whether she captured Hermione's book-smart fierceness as well as Emma had. Echo legacy in Horizon 5D. Emma is quietly honored in underground fan circles. A small stone bench with no name, only the word Brightmind, was placed in a glade near her family's home by grieving fans, now known as the Brightmind Bench. Locals claim that if you sit there and read aloud from a Harry Potter novel, the air gets unnaturally warmer, as if Emma's spirit still lingers. A later 2013 documentary, hosted by Clara Rowe, The Girl Who Lived, explores Emma's short life and the what-ifs of her career, featuring interviews with Clara Rowe, Emma's friends and family, and the original cast. J.K. Rowling dedicated Order of the Phoenix to Emma's memory in this timeline with the inscription, "For the bright mind we lost too soon." Macaulay Culkin, Echo Timeline designation, Vault Strand Bright Room 93K, died late 1994. Cause, accidental overdose at age 14 after being exposed to adult parties through an older handler figure. Impact, Home Alone 3, already in pre-production with Mac set to star in that timeline, was cancelled outright and the franchise ended prematurely. The studio attempted a reboot in 2001 with a new cast, but it flopped spectacularly. Public mourning led to a wave of protective legislation for child actors in California. Child actor protection laws. California passed the Culkin Clause, a set of strict regulations for child actors, including mandatory psychological evaluations and limited on-set hours. Echo legacy in Bright Room 93K. A statue of him as Kevin McAllister holding up his iconic paint can for a trap exists in that Echo Timeline's Central Park, installed during December of 1996, titled The Boy Who Protected Christmas, with a plaque below that reads, "For the child who taught us to fight back." A cult following emerged around Culkin's unfinished projects, with fans digitally inserting him into other films, e.g. a 2010's Home Alone 3 What If fan edit using deepfake technology. Michael Jackson's History album in this timeline includes a tribute track, Little Wishing Star, written in Culkin's memory. Christina Ricci, Echo Timeline. Designation, Mirror Strand 77W. Died, spring 1994, age 14, in a freak on-set accident during Casper's filming. Cause, fatal car accident on an ungritted service road on set location. An unsecured van rolled backwards, crushing her. Impact. Casper was recast, as only roughly half of Ricci's intended scenes had been filmed prior to her death. The film was dedicated to her memory. Casper was recast with Thora Birch as Kat, and the script rewritten to make her character darker and more introspective. The film's tone shifted to a gothic, melancholic vibe, and it became a cult classic for its eerie beauty. Public response sparked a wave of protective sentiment around dark girls in cinema. Her death became symbolic of lost darkness in cinema, and inspired a wave of gothic coming-of-age stories that treated young girls with spiritual depth. Echo legacy in Mirror Strand 77W. Ricci is eternally remembered as the girl who played Wednesday, with her face immortalized in pop culture as the definitive gothic child star. A wave of dark girl films emerged in the late 1990s, including The Raven's Daughter, 1998, and Shadows of the Attic, 2000, both heavily inspired by Ricci's legacy. The Casper Films Studio 12 Whipstaff Manor set was preserved as a memorial to her in that world, with fans leaving black roses and VHS tapes of Addams Family and Addams Family Values at the entrance. Elijah Wood, Echo Timeline Designation, Hollow Fold 89Y, died 2000, age 19, in an unexpected rock slide during Lord of the Rings early test footage filming in a remote New Zealand location. Impact. The Lord of the Rings trilogy was recast with a 30-year-old Frodo, played by Ewan McGregor, turning the story into a grittier, more cynical tale of war and loss. The films were critically divisive, praised for their dark realism, but criticized for losing the youthful heart of Tolkien's work. Peter Jackson nearly abandoned the project, but New Line Cinema forced him to continue. He ultimately reshaped it into a grittier, colder tone. Echo legacy in Hollow Fold 89Y. A private hill near Matamata became a fan pilgrimage site with a wooden sign that reads, "For the Shire's true heart." Visitors leave handwritten notes there. An animated series, The Lord of the Rings, The Lost Tale, was created in 2010, reimagining Frodo as a young hobbit in Elijah's likeness as a tribute. Anna Klumsky, Echo Timeline Designation, Echo Retreat 56B, died late December 1992, age 12, from a rare aggressive blood infection following a routine illness. Passed away shortly after My Girl 2 pre-production began. Impact. My Girl 2 was rewritten as a meta-commentary on grief, with Vada's father struggling with his daughter's death, mirroring real-life events. The film was ultimately cancelled due to the emotional weight of the project. Macaulay Culkin gave a rare, emotional interview in that timeline in 1995, saying, "She cried for me on film, and I cried for her for real." Echo legacy in Echo Retreat 56B. A scholarship fund for young actors was established in her name in the mid-1990s. The original My Girl soundtrack was re-released in 1996 with a new track, For Vader, sung by Natalie Merchant. Natalie Merchant had originally included the song on her 1995 album Tiger Lily in this timeline. The song garnered significant radio play, which prompted the soundtrack re-release. Kurt Cobain, Echo Timeline, designation Grungevale 1991, died 1991, age 24, car accident while driving home from a studio session during recordings for Nirvana's Nevermind album. Impact. Nirvana's Nevermind was shelved and Nirvana disbanded immediately. Grunge music never exploded into the mainstream the same way. Instead, alternative rock took a darker, more experimental turn with bands like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and also in this timeline, Mia Zapata, who was never killed in 1993 in this timeline branch, dominating the scene. Echo legacy in Grunge Vale, 1991. Cobain became a mythic figure, with conspiracy theories swirling around his death. Many believed it was not an accident. A posthumous album, The Never Session, was released in 1995, featuring unreleased demos and hauntingly raw recordings. Some are of variant tracks and demos never produced in our own timeline. The Seattle music scene built a memorial garden in his honor, with a statue of him holding a broken guitar. Princess Diana, Echo timeline, designation, Crown Shatter, 1987, died 1987, age 26, in a skiing accident in the Swiss Alps. Impact: the British monarchy faced a crisis of public trust, with Queen Elizabeth II's popularity plummeting. Prince Charles never remarried, and the royal family retreated from the public eye. Echo legacy in Crown Shatter, 1987. Diana became a martyr for compassion, with her charity work inspiring a global movement for homelessness and AIDS awareness. Elton John's Candle in the Wind was never rewritten. Instead, he released a new song, The People's Princess, in her memory. Conspiracy theories abounded, with many believing her death was orchestrated by the royal family. Remember the day the music died in February 1959, when Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper passed away together in a plane crash. Well, in some alternate timelines, they had other similar tragic events that silenced famous musicians early on in their careers as well. This is yet another example of just how fortunate we are. Let's dive into 3 of these examples. Tragic example. 1. The Altamont Convergence, The Burning Harmony. Echo timeline designation, Echo Tarnish 69. Date of historical divergence, December 6, 1969. Core divergence event. What begins as the real-world Altamont Free Concert, intended as the West Coast's answer to Woodstock, turns apocalyptic. In this Echo branch, a fanatical occult group calling themselves the Black Choir infiltrates the event. Armed with ritual knives and poison syringes, they simultaneously assassinate Mick Jagger and Keith Richards mid-set, Grace Slick and Paul Kantner backstage, David Crosby and Stephen Stills while walking to the press tent. Their motive, scribbled on blood-soaked parchment later found in a tent: "Too many are awakening, dissonance must be restored." Event: Rolling Stones, Jefferson Airplane, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash all killed in coordinated attacks during the Altamont concert by a cultic group known as the Black Choir. Impact: the 60s die overnight. Music retreats into safety. Psychedelia is outlawed. Woodstock becomes a cautionary tale instead of a mythic triumph. Legacy: known as the Burning Harmony. Artists like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young become hermits, recording only for themselves. Free love becomes silent love. Tragic example 2, the night the riff died. Echo timeline designation, Echo Dust 99. Date of historical divergence, October 31st, 1999. Core divergence event: on the Halloween before the new millennium, as the world braced for Y2K chaos, the System of a Down plus Deftones co-headlining tour, the Toxic Serenity Tour, was nearing its climax. The two bands, at the height of their powers, were set to perform a final sold-out show in Las Vegas, a city already crackling with apocalyptic energy. But in this Echo, the night took a darker turn. A sabotaged tour bus, its brakes tampered with by a disgruntled former roadie, a man later revealed to be a member of a fringe anti-nu metal collective called the Silent Majority, careened off a desert highway at 3:38 a.m. The crash was catastrophic. The bus, carrying Serge Tankian, Darren Malakian, Shavo Odagian, John Dolmayan, Chino Moreno, Stephen Carpenter, Chi Cheng, and Frank Delgado, flipped into a ravine and erupted in flames. There were no survivors. The motive scrawled in a manifesto found in the roadie's trailer. The noise must end. The world does not need this anger. Let the silence return. Event. The pillars of nu metal, System of a Down and Deftones were erased in a single, fiery instant. The genre, already on the rise, was left headless. The tour's final show, meant to be a triumphant capstone, became a funeral pyre. Impact. Nu metal, stripped of its two most innovative voices, never dominates the early 2000s. The void is filled by the surviving strands of pop-punk, Blink-182, Green Day, and Sum 41, who, without the competition, stretch their reign into the mid-2000s. The aggression of nu metal is replaced by the sarcastic, melodic angst of pop-punk, and the cultural landscape of the 2000s is forever altered. Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Slipknot attempt to carry the torch, but without System of a Down's political fury and Deftones' atmospheric depth, the movement fractures. Nu metal becomes a footnote, a cautionary tale of a sound that burned too bright, too fast. Legacy, known as The Night the Riff Died. The date, October 31st, 1999, becomes a day of mourning in alternate music lore. Conspiracy theories abound. Was it really an accident, or was it an industry hit? In this echo, nu metal's revolution is stillborn, and the 2000s belong to the power chords and pop hooks of a less chaotic but no less passionate era. Tragic example 3, The Vanishing Trinity. Echo timeline. Designation, Echo Glyph 92. Date of historical divergence, January 1st, 1992. Core divergence event. The dawn of 1992 was meant to be a celebration. Prince, Madonna, and Michael Jackson, the holy trinity of pop's golden age, had chartered a private spaceflight as a symbolic gesture of unity and artistic ambition. The flight, organized by a reclusive billionaire and avid music fan, was to be a zero-gravity recording session, a stunt to usher in a new era of creativity. The world watched as the three boarded the Celestial Harmony, a sleek, experimental spacecraft, for what was billed as the first concert in the stars. But the Celestial Harmony never returned. At 12 a.m. UTC, as the world counted down to the new year, the spacecraft vanished from radar. No distress signal, no wreckage, no bodies, just silence. The last transmission, a garbled snippet of Prince's voice, "We're going somewhere else." Theories exploded. Alien abduction, a government cover-up, a dimensional rift. The truth was never found. It became this world's equivalent of the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 mystery. Event. The Vanishing Trinity, Prince, Madonna, and Michael Jackson, were erased from the earth in a single, inexplicable moment. The world lost its three most iconic pop figures in one fell swoop. Impact. Pop music fractures. Without MJ's magic, Madonna's reinvention, and Prince's genius, the 90s belonged to the rising stars of grunge, hip-hop, and R&B. Nirvana, Tupac, and Whitney Houston become the defining voices of the decade, but the absence of the Trinity leaves a void that can never be filled. The MTM music television movement collapses without its figureheads. The Super Bowl halftime show becomes a somber, low-key affair for years. The Grammy Awards are postponed indefinitely in 1992 as the industry grapples with the loss. Legacy, known as The Day the Stars Went Out. January 1st, 1992, becomes a date etched in infamy. Conspiracy theories persist for decades. Some claim the three were taken by extraterrestrials to perform for a cosmic audience. Others believe they ascended to a higher plane of existence or slipped into another dimension, their music now the soundtrack of the multiverse itself. It became this world's equivalent of the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 mystery. In this echo, pop music is forever changed. The 90s are darker, rawer, and more introspective. The Trinity's disappearance becomes a cautionary tale about hubris, ambition, and the price of genius. Their music, now rare and sacred, is played in hushed tones, as if summoning their spirits back from the void. The weight of what could have been. These alternate timelines serve as a haunting reminder of the fragility of fate. In our world, we were fortunate enough to have these stars with us for longer, but in other echoes, their light was snuffed out too soon. Their legacies in those timelines are bittersweet, a mix of mourning, inspiration, and the lingering question of what could have been. But here's the truth. Every time we remember them, every time we honor their work, we keep their echoes alive. Whether it's Emma Watson's Hermione, Macaulay Culkin's Kevin, or Christina Ricci's Wednesday, their impact transcends timelines. They are not just stars. They are symbols of the stories we tell, the art we create, and the lives we touch. So the next time you watch a movie, listen to a song, or read about a celebrity's life, take a moment to appreciate the fortune of our timeline, because in another echo, their light might have been extinguished far too soon. The witness watches, the beacon burns. The world is worth remembering. The Storybearer.